Now we come to physics, and the chapter is heat. 1. What is heat really, and what are its properties? Heat is a sensation that we feel, but what is that sensation, and how is it caused? You understand? How do we get that sensation? Heat in the earlier times was thought to be a kind of fluid that goes from one body to another. They really thought that. But later they understood that heat is nothing but the jiggling and wiggling of atoms and molecules. Matter is not all one piece. Inside, it is made up of crores and crores and crores of atoms, and combination of atoms called molecules. These atoms or molecules move randomly, and more the movement of the atoms, more the heat. Our skins have evolved to perceive heat with a sensation of hot and cold. In a cold night, why do we feel cold? It is because the molecules of air move about at less average energy called kinetic energy. When we rub our hands hard, a lot of heat is automatically produced. Why? Again, it is because when you rub your hands together, the atoms inside jiggle more and more, and that gives us a sensation of heat. That is a real wonder, isn't it? So when pressure is increased, then heat is produced. The pressure can be due to friction, due to electricity. And then there is another thing that heat does. It can change the state from solid to liquid and liquid to gas. Why does this happen? It happens because in a solid, the atoms are fixed in their places. They cannot move about. And when heat is given to such a solid, the bonds between the atoms that keep them fixed weaken and they move about, though the link between them does not break. This is a liquid. On further heating, the links, that is the bonds, are also broken completely, and that is a gas, obviously. So that's a beautiful wonder. Heat also expands solids, liquids, and gases. This is because the bonds between the atoms inside get loosened and the body as a whole stretches or expands. So, expansion of solids. Heat is also transmitted in 3 ways: conduction, convection, radiation. When one part of a solid body is heated, the atoms inside that part starts jiggling and wiggling. These in turn moves the atom beside them and so on. Thus heat is transmitted from one end to the other. This is conduction. So conduction is very beautiful. It's like a transmission of heat from one end to the other because the atoms jiggle and wiggle the neighboring atoms and so on. Convection is very interesting. This is another way by which heat is transmitted. Suppose we take a bucket full of water and heat it for some time. The lower part, which is closer to the heat, gets heated up. The bonds inside loosen up, only the lower part, and the distance between the atoms becomes greater. When the distance becomes greater, it is like the weight is reduced as less is now in the space occupied earlier. The gravitational attraction hence reduces and the water goes up. Or rather, the top water becomes heavier and comes down. The colder, heavier water pushes into its place the lower part of the water. So, the upper part comes down and the lower part goes up. Thus, heat gets transmitted by actual movement of water. This is called a convection. Exactly the same thing happens causing winds. The air closer to the earth is heated up, becomes lighter due to the atoms going further apart and hence rising due to less gravitational attraction. The colder, heavier gas pushes into its place and that is the wind. So you see, there's no great mystery to the wind, but it's such a wonder, isn't it? There is a third way in which heat is transmitted, and it is a wondrous way. They are through waves. These are waves called heat waves or infrared waves. They are part of the electromagnetic spectrum to be covered in a later section. These waves do not need any medium. So this is a wave. It's got nothing to do with the type of transmission of heat which we considered earlier, the conduction and the convection. The sun's heat is actually heat waves which travel through space and come to earth. It travels through the whole of the space and there is nothing in that space. So radiation. Thus, we see that there are three ways of transmission of heat: conduction, convection, and radiation. So, what is heat really? Heat is the jiggling and wiggling of atoms. Let's summarize. And that is, the more the heat, the more the temperature. The more the average kinetic energy, more temperature there is. And what is change of state? Solid becomes liquid and liquid becomes gas, because the bonds become loosened, half in the liquid, fully in the gas. And what is the transmission of expansion of solids and liquids and gases due to heat? Because it stretches. The bonds loosen up and it stretches. All solids, liquids, and gases expand on heating. And what about the transmission of heat? There are three ways: conduction, the jiggling of the atoms gives the push to the neighboring atoms, and so on. Convection, the actual water, because one part of the water or liquid becomes, or one part of the gas or liquid becomes lighter, and it's the actual movement of the medium from one part of the other. The lighter goes up, the heavier comes down, and this is how we get winds. And there's a third kind of transmission of heat apart from conduction and convection, and that is radiation, and they are nothing but electromagnetic waves, which we will cover in the later section, and they do not need any medium. So that is a summary. I hope you liked the lesson, and I hope you got a very deep, very beautiful understanding of heat. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.